you, Jack. I forgot my coffee. As Jack said, I'm Matt Benzie. I graduated from here in 2006. I got in yesterday, stayed here last night, staying here tonight, and it's just been pretty exciting to be back at campus. What was that, 15 years ago? The campus has changed so much. This building's new. I wasn't in this building. Some of you may have heard stories of Hills North. But anyhow, I just want it's really exciting to be back, really inspiring. You guys have a great program here. So to get started, I'm here to talk to you about design, build, and the key word here underlined is maintain. So that is kind of the key point that I want to talk about. I'm going to go over kind of all those things. But being my firm, had a landscape architecture firm, designing it, constructing it, we really found that there was a lot to be learned through maintenance. And then the reason, that this is important to most of you is learning that when you're designing, that's another element to really think about. Like obviously we're all trained to think about how to construct it, but it's especially when you're getting into native plants and how we're planting, how that garden is going to be maintained for 10 years after your design is done. So we will get started. I kind of just went over that but a little bit about me and kind of how I came to be here. Again, graduated in 2006. There's a picture of Hills North. Found that in my old photos. There's a picture of our studio. Jaron and Martha, who are here, probably recognize that and brings back scary memories. Don't look too closely. Started out here, graduated. I took an unconventional path. And that's something we can go into. I've done this lecture about the maintenance a couple times. Something I added into this one, since I'm talking to students, I thought would be fun to kind of dip in a little bit about myself and the journey that I took after college that ultimately got me to starting my own business down the road. Environmentalist to the core, as Jack kind of mentioned, a lot of my personal experience, spending time in nature, just really a love for the environment. So kind of that unconventional path, there's a picture of me on a rooftop doing solar, kind of some of the other ways I went. Again, summing up what we're here to talk about is that people really are taking a bigger interest in maintenance, and my company, Indigenous Ingenuities. And here's a picture of my team. Maybe a little bit outdated. There's me with my kids and the company that I run and all the people that it takes to do the work that we do. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna stray from the conversation about maintenance for a little bit and tell you a little bit about my journey and kind of the direction I went. And I think the reason that's important is one of the things that's so neat about a BSLA and other related fields is I think the versatility that it offers. I think we can go so many different directions with that type of degree. So I thought it was relevant to discuss that and inspire people, and to also be clear that just because I did these things does not mean it's the right fit for everybody, but just to kind of go over that. So again, it shows me doing stonework. There's me climbing trees, getting my different experience. Like I said, it really was not cut out for the office life. I knew that. I loved this program, and I just knew that I wanted to be more hands-on. So those are the directions I went. After school, I moved to South Carolina, where I lived in this really awesome trailer. And I showed the picture because it's in this beautiful state park. It was a really unique experience right out of school, where I was afforded a lot of freedom. to do my own work. There was my office inside the trailer, just a little bit of chaos. And I came up with this really neat project where there's this beautiful amphitheater built by the CCC in this state park. And they'd hired me to kind of come up with my own ideas. And so that's something that I came up with, where the design was there, but nobody was using it. So I created a concert series to bring people into this otherwise forgotten space. So again, just kind of highlighting there's so many paths and you don't really know where it's going to take you. And then, when I was down there, ended up working doing solar for a couple years. And the reason that's relevant to this talk is, again, something that I wasn't expecting to do. I graduated with the idea of being a landscape architect and really going that direction. But when I kind of got roped into doing it, I got to travel a lot. Here's another picture, with amazing view down in Charleston, South Carolina. I learned so much about construction, metal work, electrical work, plumbing, and all these things ended up having such a positive role in me one day starting my own business. So again, don't feel like there's any one path. And then my journey, my adventure. After I did all these things, I traveled, I did solar. I decided, hey, what are we? We're planners, right? And for me, the best way to decide what I want to be as a planner is to plan that out. And what better way than to hike and walk and think? So I ended up hitchhiking around the country. And that was a pretty unique experience. So there's my that's everything I owned. And I made my way around the country. There's trying to catch a ride out of Las Vegas. It was so neat because it was the intention was to explore public transportation, to explore spaces, and to immerse myself in cultures. So while yes, I was traveling in this unique way, I ultimately got to California where I got on a bicycle and rode the whole way up the West Coast. And it's like, okay, so what's the point? Why am I telling you guys this? Like there was this plan to visit all these unique spaces. So I'm sure some people here probably know the name of this park. It's in Portland. I forget the name of it, but along this journey, I had this very intentional purpose of visiting these spaces, watching these people, meeting, different people. So again, the architecture of this library in Seattle, Millennium Park in Chicago, MIT in Boston, Frank Gehry, right? It was a really eye-opening experience, and then when all this concluded and I ran out of money and basically had to go home and get a job, is when I started my business. So I thank you for bearing with me through kind of all that. Like I said, I thought it was relevant with you all being students, about to embark on your careers, to kind of tell a little bit about my story and how they all added to what became Indigenous Ingenuities. So that concluded. I, very happy and stress-free there. And then I had kids. And I freaked out. And I said, I have to make money. I have to start a business. And it's been the greatest next journey of my life. There's me with my daughter helping. So that's my family. That's my journey. And now, quickly a little bit about the company. So Indigenous Ingenuities, right? So the backstory, how I got here. So I started a company called Indigenous Ingenuities. What's in a name? Indigenous, local, native plants, local resources. That was a really important part of it, really trying to local economy, things like that. And then always having a creative mindset about it, never being afraid to take on a challenge. So that was the idea behind this, kind of long name. So landscape architecture, that was always the idea. We started there. We're designers. We're going to design these spaces, then we're going to build them, and then we're going to maintain them. Showing, again, the ecological services. Here's a picture of my team working in the Great Swamp of New Jersey, where we were hired to help restore erosion and correct stream corridors. Really important work with flood zones. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Great Swamp, but it's a huge area meant for really important ecological services. So it was a neat project. Again, the crew just taking a lunch break, doing stonework. So it's a little slow. So again, going back to what Jack said about our commitment to environmentalism, in the 10 years my company's been in business, we have not used any Roundup or chemical herbicides. We've only used mechanical removals and horticultural vinegar as our primary source for weed control. And then battery equipment. There's us working on a college campus using battery string trimmers, and the value to that is we're on a college campus, as obviously we are right now too. The students can be in class and we can be doing the work and not disturbing. We could be outside right now, weed whacking, and this wouldn't be disturbing this lecture. So just why some of those things were helpful. And then we had this kind of neat bicycle-driven lawn mowing service that's all electric, zero emissions. It's niche. It's in the borough. We have 20 clients. It only obviously works on certain scales, but pretty neat. All right. So why are we talking about this, right? Like, why am I invited here to talk to you guys about primarily maintenance? Again, design, build, maintain. As designers, we want to really be. And I think it's really important that we're thinking more about maintenance. Here's just an example of a design from my office. It shows that the garden design is changing. So it's not just me. It's not just my company, right? You have all sorts of landscape architects. We're seeing new projects. Obviously, a common name is Pete Rudolph. The way he's planting so densely with plants means that we have to change how we're handling our maintenance in our gardens, and that has to be thought about in the design process. So these are just some projects that we've worked on throughout the years. Here's a bioswale at an elementary school, a community rain garden, a project that we designed, installed, and maintained. Another one that we've designed, installed, and maintained. And then, all these different elements, and then the biggest thing that we're here to kind of talk about is the challenges to success, right? And that's what I'm going to dive deeper into in this lecture, is the importance of thinking about maintenance, but also why is it so challenging? There we go. There's our crew helping us do maintenance at a Pete Rudolph meadow in Delaware. So as we talk about all these things, one of the things I want to talk about is, what do we call this? And this is a common conversation in my kind of community that we're dealing with, is maintenance. Actually, me and Jack were just talking at lunch about the word maintenance, right? So there's a connotation and an expectation, I think, when you hear the word maintenance, of what kind of work that is. And Jack was using the word management. It's not maintenance. We're doing management. There's more complexity to it. So that means you have to think about who's going to take care of your design after it's done. Are you working that into your plan? Are you providing specifications that require a qualification, a certification? Is this a horticulturalist or somebody who doesn't really know how to identify plants? So we put these words together: nurture, regenerate, create habitat, foster community, caretaker, sustain, right? Like these were kind of keywords for me that define what we're talking about as management rather than maintenance. It's a common discussion, I think similar to the way that we use landscape architect to differentiate from landscape designer if you're registered or not registered. I think we're approaching a similar issue with garden care. So for my company, and this doesn't mean this is the word that everyone's going to use, but within my business, we landed on the word garden care and restoration. For our clients, that's just what seemed to make the most sense. But yeah, so that's the approach we're taking. So real quick, just to kind of go through some of our projects, the difference between conventional maintenance and garden care and restoration. So you see same house, you see, I'll just jump in. What we would call a more conventional landscape where it's, what I call more of a static landscape. You've got the boxwood hedge, it's sheared into a shape, it's kind of keeping you on that path. You've got a lot of mulch on these properties. And so the maintenance style and the maintenance required is just different, right? And why do we do it? In essence, it's easier to maintain. It doesn't take as much education to know what you're doing. You can kind of send somebody you just hired off the street and give them a hand of some power shears and say, hey, shear this into a shape. So that's the reason, going back to kind of a simpler business model. But again, reminding everyone, why I'm here is I'm here talking to you about ecological landscaping. We're thinking about doing things with a more ecological approach with native plants, not using herbicides, things like that. So we want to think differently about how we design it. So just some more pictures, and then okay, so now jumping into what we're calling the dynamic landscape, where things move, where you have habitat, we're focusing on not using chemicals, we're focusing on minimizing the size of lawn, we're thinking about the design, but there's just such a wide assortment of plants, and you're trying to do two things. We're no longer designing just for aesthetics. We're designing for habitat. We're not just designing for people, but we're thinking about insects and animals and stormwater management. Like we're applying all these ecological services to design, and we have to think about how we maintain that. So that's that picture again. This is after we designed and installed it. You can kind of, there's the after, there's the before, there's the after, there's the before, after, before, after, before. You get it. After. So that kind of gives you an example. Those are all projects that my company designed, builds, and maintains. And you'll see, just real quick, like how thick and full they are. And that's not the first year picture either. These pictures are 3 years down the road after we stayed and maintained these gardens. If we hadn't, they most likely would not have succeeded like they did. Okay, so I just showed you some examples of our work. The other big thing that's really important, and how relevant is it to you as people thinking about being designers? Yeah, I think it's relevant. But also maybe you're just gonna go a different direction. You want to do the maintenance. The point is, the biggest struggle I've had in my company to this day is finding the right people. We have the idea, we have the knowledge, we have the philosophy, we have the demands from clients. The work is there. I just can't find people. I can find passionate people, but do they stay? There's a host of problems. So that's where I want to talk a little bit about the people. The people are a really important part of this. So I'm going to let these slides play. These are just videos of 3 different employees of mine. That's my maintenance manager, Mary, maintenance crew leader, Joe, and maintenance crew leader, Sophie. And you'll see kind of in the quotes too that they all, none of them had a background in horticulture at all. And that's a lot of what we're attracting.
All right.
My name is Mary Zuzak. I'm the maintenance manager at Indigenous. I started at the beginning of last season, so this is going to be my 2nd year. I had an office job before this. I started a hobby as a gardener, and I started to see gardening as my form of environmentalism.
Why do you feel the kinship?
It was just my whole life. I looked for a company that treated landscaping as habitat, as a plant community.
Actually,
So the magnolia back there, it's just like sitting in the bed of the truck, has been on a long journey already. We have to work pretty hard to source those things, get the right plant for the right place. I met a couple people here. I got to see that's the company I wanted to work for. I haven't worked anywhere else where the shop is so organized. When I came here for the interview, it felt like a group of friends that were trying to change the world. And I've never seen a company like that.
What's your name and what do you do here?
My name is Joe. I'm from Eastchester, New York originally. Beforehand, I was actually an anesthesiologist for the vet tech industry.
You're kidding.
Yeah, close to 7 years.
What drew you out of that lab and into the outdoors?
Yeah, I wanted to get back outside, get my hands dirty. I was really interested in native plant management. So that's what drew me to Indigenous. It was really interesting for me to create like beautiful landscapes that also provides habitat at the same time. People that are really invested in and passionate about the plants and the environment.
That's what you found.
And that's what I found.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm Sophie. I am the team leader on the maintenance team. Keeping gardens that we've already installed up to snuff, looking pretty and pristine so that people can enjoy them. So I started at the very beginning of March when it was really, really, really cold, and then I went through the whole season when it was really, really, really hot, and now we're back to cold again. So yeah, so I'm a biologist. I'm a scientist by trade. I didn't know what to do with it after I graduated because it was the middle of the pandemic. I worked at Acadia National Park for a summer and I loved it. I have always been an environmentalist. I knew that it was something I wanted to do, and I wanted to be outside and I wanted to be in the sunshine.
What kind of places did you and who you were?
This was the only one. Because I found them on Instagram and I was like, I love the aesthetic of this. I love your gardens. I love all that you stand for. I went on the website, I did all the research, I reached out. I actually came in with a cohort of people that were all first timers at this particular job. So we've all just spent the whole summer learning and growing and developing. And we've fallen into this sort of flow state where instead of feeling like I'm coming to work every day, it feels like I'm coming to meditate every day.
All right, so that's just a couple of videos from people that work with us, and to kind of recap on that, it's something we put a lot of energy into as a business to try and attract people and retain people. I think as you heard some of their testimonials, is it's complicated. What we're trying to do in a certain way is pioneering. I think everything we're talking about is new types of design. Like they talked about, just the types of designs that are coming out are different from what they were 10 years ago. And that means there's a new labor force that we have to think about to address those needs. And like I said, I can't stand here and say that I've quite figured it out yet, but I think that those are a good example of kind of what we're trying to do. Okay, so how do we do it? How do we do it at Indigenous Ingenuities? And obviously as designers, we can all do things different ways. That's the beauty of creativity. So, design, build, maintain differently but together. So that's the philosophy of Indigenous Ingenuities. When a client reaches out to us, we're really pushing you to start with our landscape architect, and you stay with them, and they're setting the expectation, they're setting the goal the whole time you're working, the whole process. You know, if the design process takes 6 months, you're tweaking the design, you're telling your designer what you want, but it's our job also as the designer to be setting the expectation for our clients that when we're done with this, you need to maintain this garden. And the way we are set up, and again, this doesn't mean this is how everyone has to be set up, but why there's the advantage to design, build, and maintain is that we're saying you're gonna hire us to design it, you're gonna hire us to build it, and you're gonna hire us to maintain it. And if you, as the client, say, all right, the design's done, I want a quote for you to build it, and I'm just gonna make a number up here. You know, it's a considerable design, and it's $150,000 project for a client. Like, okay, they're spending good money. I'm not gonna build that unless they've also told me that they're gonna hire me for 3 years to maintain it, because that's the only way I know that that garden's gonna succeed. And again, we are primarily talking about plants here. You know, there's other elements of maintenance, you know, caring for wood and things like that. You know, if you use natural woods, are we staining it correctly and caring for it? But primarily I'm talking about plants. But that's our philosophy. That's how we operate. It doesn't mean everybody does, but that's how we're finding success. Those pictures I showed you earlier, that's how we've achieved those gardens. And then can ultimately walk away from it once they're kind of taking off. So that design is CB West is a high school in the town we work in. This is neat because it's a courtyard. But I wanted to show this because this is an example of a project that we designed, we built, and we maintained. But also it's very natural. They didn't have much of a budget. So how we can also do things on a budget and for institutional systems for students and impactful work. There's us putting in the path system, the ADA, gravel paved system to circumnavigate the space. And then there's the space all grown in after we've seeded and plugged it, full of pollinators and habitat. And then even the winter, right? You're acknowledging that we're leaving stalks up through the winter time, and how we maintain it is very important. Okay, so another important thing to go over is examples of projects that valued our unique approach. So I've talked to you about our approach, my team, doing things in-house. We also get reached out to by projects that were designed by someone else. And I think this is a really important part of the talk because it's the cautionary tale of a designer, right? This Rowan University stream corridor, which is the first picture here. Here's a picture of us, working in that stream corridor. Here's all the, I was mentioning the battery tools that we use, all commercial grade Husqvarna battery tools that allow us to be quiet on the campus. But the more important point is that the reason we were called down to work on this project, it was, people may not be familiar with the firm Andrew Pogon Associates out of Philadelphia, a really reputable firm that, they clearly know what they're doing, a great stream restoration project through the center of this campus, $1 million project installed, and I don't know where things went wrong, but it was left to the campus grounds crew to take care of it, and unfortunately they just were not trained, and they killed just about every single plant, literally every single plant. And they called us down, and they spent a lot of money with my company for 3 years to small effect. I mean, we've been able to care for it and get it going in a better direction. But they don't have the budget anymore because they spent it all. So they're just trying to help have us keep it good enough when this thing could have been gorgeous, but they didn't want to spend the money to hire a company that may have had more skilled workers to take care of this garden. And 3 years later, they actually ended up spending far more money to have a less product. So I think that's a really important example. You heard me mention before the Delaware Botanic Garden. This was designed by Pete Rudolph. They installed it over the summer. It was installed by volunteers. And they installed it, they had irrigation, and everybody went away for summer vacation. And, whatever. So they went away, and this 2-acre amazing garden was covered in crabgrass and horsetail this high. You can see this picture, you can see everything in there. Gorgeous textures and young. These are all freshly planted only weeks ago here. This is right after we finished our work. You could not see this at all, and they couldn't find a company. It was a 4-hour trip for us to get there. We were the closest company they could find to come hand weed this. It took us 2 weeks with a crew of 6 people working 10-hour days. It was exciting, quite frankly, but obviously not for them, but for me, I enjoyed it. But again, just goes to show the importance of having somebody somewhere. The point got missed that after those plants went in, we do not just walk away. Another just example is this was a private residence in Princeton, New Jersey, but where the client really wanted their 15-acre woods restored. And we got hired because we were not going to go in with machinery. They didn't want compaction of the forest floor. They didn't want chemicals. So that's just an example where there's people valuing different approaches to how we do things. And also, I think what's so neat by doing things by hand, it goes to show that box turtle, would have most likely been crushed by heavy machinery. So there's habitat being preserved and saved, and then we're seeing it when we can go in and be light on our feet. It costs far more money and it's way more time intensive, but when you have the right client with the right budget, you can do those things, and it's exciting. Again, another elementary school near Asbury Park, New Jersey. A lot of these cautionary tales are similar but important for everyone to understand. I think one of the points I want everyone to the consistent thing here is the distance we were going to do these. It shows that there aren't many companies doing this, and this is where there's an opportunity. Let's see more businesses taking on these types of tasks. But same issue, beautiful meadow, bioswale, catching all the runoff from the parking lot for this elementary school, where teachers were able to take the kids out, walk them through it. That's us using the battery equipment. Let's see another picture, another angle of the meadow. There's all paths through it. And then these are pictures of us after we were maintaining it, but this thing was almost being completely taken over by mugwort. And similar issue, right? Elementary school kids, the parents did not want Roundup. So there was a benefit to having the knowledge to know how to identify the weeds, how to take care of them, but also using different approaches. Another one, Fairleigh Dickinson University outside of New York City. This project, similarly, the EPA did not want any sort of chemicals going near this. So we successfully eradicated Phragmites without using chemicals. And I shouldn't say eradicated. We have kept it very much at bay. It's obviously not gone, but we've by exhausting it, cutting it back. One of the tricks we used was changing. In this situation, we had control to change the water levels, so we stressed it that way, and it looks much better. This is after the fact. So we're seeing success. The thing that we remind people is that it takes a lot more time. It's return visits year after And then Doylestown Borough, they hired us, the town we live in, to take care of all their parks. I always like this picture where we're spreading corn gluten, and these ducks showed up in town and they're eating the corn gluten because it's essentially, feed for animals. Showing the benefit of using organic approaches. And again, just, kids' playground. I'm not really spraying vinegar there, I'm just posing for a picture. But just showing the benefit of, those things, especially around areas where there's kids. All right, so, so what is the answer to all of this, right? So we've gone through all these things. I think, people and design, right? It's really starting out the design process. But as you see, I really emphasize people. Finding the right people to do it. You people in this crowd, you want to get into horticultural maintenance. I love doing it. It's fun getting out with the crew. It's pretty neat. And you learn a lot. As a designer, when you're in the field and you plant plants and then you return each year and you see how they interact and change. We all fail at things. I put plants in the wrong place all the time, and then I dig them up and I move them. And my understanding of plants is so much greater because of my experience going in the field and doing maintenance. But you're just going through, like I said, people. So I'm going to go through some pictures of just the people, having fun, attracting a positive horticulture. All those things play an important role. There's the team again. So kind of getting to the end here, what's the future hold? There's my daughter rolling around in a no-mow, chemical-free lawn, and she is the future. And I've always loved that picture because I think it's just an optimistic outlook where I don't have to worry, what is she rolling around in. So we need to change the way we're thinking about things. Again, I'm talking from a very environmental kind of aspect, if that's the direction you want to go. Attracting people, a hot button topic, right, is higher pay, better, different benefits, community and cause, and again, going back to, I think that, for everyone here, when I give this talk, I always have different audiences. Obviously, this is a very design kind of heavy audience. So as designers, this all starts with designers. It all starts with you. The moment you're working on a plan, really thinking, what is the maintenance realistically with our clients? Sometimes you have frustration where they paid a lot of money and they're like, wait, I now have to spend how much to maintain this for the next 5 years? So it's really good that we're communicating that. And then just here are some pictures of our gardens that we've designed, built, and continually maintain. This is a nice one that kind of shows the context of the neighborhood. Nice pool area, all native plants around it. Higher density where we're planting the health strips and the properties. And then I always like this one. It's a little bit more of a kind of rural barn house conversion where there's a formal garden, but then it's also very natural. There's a stream, further down there. So it's a balance, right, of sending a team that can handle a more formal area, but also know how to handle a meadow or what to do near a stream corridor. So I think with that, it sums it up, and thank you for listening to my talk.
I'm sure Matthew would be happy to take any questions or comments for a few minutes.
Sure, you got it.
Yeah, great talk. Really appreciate it. How do you sort of navigate your design field, but how do you navigate the world of, okay, you bid out for the design and then you have to bid out for the build? How do you sort of navigate that?
Well, so, and it's something that has evolved from when I started the business to having a slightly more mature business where we have the work coming in to sustain it. But the way we handle it now is that we're like if someone calls my office and my office manager answers the phone today, we right then and there let them know that we kind of size them up for if they're a good fit and let them know that if you want us to build this, that you have to go through this. Like, so if somebody comes and says, hey, I just want a quote for you to build a patio, we say, that's great, you have to talk to our designer. Like, no, it's just a rectangle. It's great, you have to talk to our designer. And you have to pay for them to come out and do that. So we kind of force everyone, no matter what, through a system so that we can control the narrative and manage the expectations. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking sort of like more on the public side.
Gotcha.
Is your realm more sort of the private side?
Yeah, so because of this system, it actually has become more private. We, as you saw some pictures, we definitely do institutional work and work on those kinds of things, public work. But essentially the narrative is the same. But we also do, just like I showed you, we have specialty projects where someone might call and say, hey, we just need you for maintenance. So when the project's right, we'll go do just that. But we're really not bidding on other designs or anything like that.
Thank you.
Yep, and the other.
Could you talk a little bit about sort of like when you first started, like the scale of your operation, like was it just you, like how, like the size of the projects you worked on? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, 10 years ago, I'm 40, so I was 30. I finished all my, gallivanting, and I bought a pickup truck, and I just kind of in the town, put feelers out, started out one project at a time. I remember I got a project, and it was like a dry stack retaining wall, and it was $10,000. It's like, oh my, who spends $10,000? And I now realize I'm an idiot for thinking that. But my point is very small. Like it was very small, a pickup truck, and then I bought a trailer, and then I bought a trailer that dumped, and that was really cool. So it started out very small, and it just grew in interest. Jack mentioned I'm a certified arborist. I did a lot of tree climbing in the beginning to supplement. Then as the business grew, I hired my first employee, and to be perfectly honest with you, the moment my first kid showed up, I just kind of like freaked out and was like, how do you support kids? I have to grow a business in case I get hurt so that it can, and it just kind of took off. It grew very fast. So we had our largest, we were 28 employees. Yeah. And back there?
How far into the business did you start hiring your first employee? Like, what was that timeline like of that?
Let's see. Probably about like 2 years. Yeah. Frank?
Yeah, great talk, very inspiring, and also you kind of, like, let it grow, and you mentioned in one of the last slides, like education, learning. I mean, you mentioned that's like, probably learn, right? How do you learn from other projects and which ones, and how do you teach, the employees? Because I think teach them on the work, but maybe you have other things that you add, or you do field trips, or how do you keep your knowledge growing?
Yeah.
And it's also you getting into stuff that you don't know, and
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the biggest challenges is the way that my company is maintaining gardens today is different than we were 2 years ago and different than we were 4 years ago. So part of it is we're constantly just learning from experience. So that's challenging for the team. But then we combine it with going to conferences. I pay. We encourage continuing education. So students, employees, we kind of have just an open program where it's like, look, come to me with something you found that you think is inspiring, justify it to me, and we'll pay for it. So we're just constantly trying to encourage. And another philosophy too, a lot of this started with me, but everyone we hire, I'm constantly saying, come to me with a new idea. Like if someone, Mary, my maintenance manager, says, Matt, you told me to do it this way from a thing that you thought about a year ago, but I think this way's better. And I'm like, wow, that's a really good idea, and that's what we do. So it's very collaborative.
How do you evaluate, like, so we say like, okay, 2 years do it differently, 4 years do it differently, how do you evaluate that? Like,
If it was successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you're not doing it on your own, right? You probably.
Well, I've done a lot of it on my own, and I still have all the branches of my business. I probably spend the most time with the maintenance because it is something that I think is we're still figuring out and learning how to take care of these things. So yeah, I'm not quite sure. Mike?
So I'm really fascinated with this idea of hiring high quality people, keeping them on staff, paying them a living wage, and convincing your clients that what you're charging is worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in your perspective on that.
Yeah. So that
You
is.
started to talk about it.
Yeah. I did. To your point, I only mentioned it briefly.
Right.
But we could talk about it for a long time. It's a really important part, and that's something that I'm very active with trying to achieve. And that's exactly it. I want to say unfortunately. I think most things start out this way. Most of my clientele is more affluent, and they can afford because to afford to pay these employees living wages, and we have full benefits packages and all those things, and we keep them busy. We're committed to them. We have to charge more. We're definitely not the cheapest company, but it's a constant challenge.
Yeah. So educating your clients about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that is a big part of it is educating them, explaining to them. A lot of our clients, after they hire us, really value it because they love the fact that everyone on their property, they can tell, is passionate and excited. And they get to know them. There's a relationship being built there, and I think they really value that.
Great. And welcome back again.
Yeah, thanks. Behind Mike.
So the design, build, and maintenance, are they 3 separate companies, or is it all one? And obviously, you're probably able to keep the maintenance crew busy all the time, but how about the build team?
Yeah. Yeah, so in essence, they are legally all under the name Indigenous Ingenuities in one business, but we do try to market and present ourselves as we can also, every single one can operate completely independently of each other as, in essence, its own business. I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
I guess how do you, that answers my second question, which was, how would you, but you keep the maintenance team busy, but how about the build team?
Yeah, so I think that part obviously is, yes, quite frankly, comes down to, theoretically being good at your job. We fortunately, since I've started the business, have pretty much constantly had a 1-year backlog on people waiting to have jobs designed and built. And what's nice is because we make everyone hire us as a designer, that design work feeds our build, and then when that build is done, it feeds our maintenance. So it works out well to feed everything, but again, to your point, we can choose to operate independently too.
Yeah, so great talk. I'm curious,
first about the seasonality of the work. Are the employees able to work year-round in your areas? And also, if you're continuing to get projects, building and then maintaining them, aren't you getting more and more and more maintenance?
Yes.
You can't keep up with it?
Right, yes, that is a problem I worry about a lot too. So, it is a challenge. I guess I'll start with the first question. So out of having, it fluctuates, we'll call it 20 some odd employees. We have a carpentry division that can luckily go inside and do interior carpentry work. Thanks to potentially global warming, we can work through the winter almost entirely. That's sarcasm. But I mean, we really, I do lay people off. But out of the 20 people, it's probably like 6 people. The design team stays busy. The managers go inside the office to prepare for the next season. And we really, because the temperatures are so mild, the winters are mild enough in Philadelphia, it's like a month and a half of layoffs. So it does happen, but it's luckily somewhat